This week, Emmet and I discuss Kamandi issues 38 through 40, the last three that Jack Kirby drew, written by Gerry Conway. How did Conway deal with the plot point in issue 37 that made Emmet so uncomfortable? Was Conway up to filling the shoes of Kirby? We hope you'll spread the word about Deconstructing Comics, tell your friends about us, share episodes on social media, and also send us suggestions for topics we could cover. Email us at mail@deconstructingcomics.com. This is Tim.
This is Emmet.
And this is Deconstructing Comics. Welcome to Deconstructing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Emmet in country Victoria, Australia. How are you?
I'm well, Tim. How are things?
All right. So we're at the last three issues of Kamandi that Jack Kirby had anything to do with, and he's not the writer. He's only the artist. Although yes. I had to wonder. So Gerry Conway is writing, and I had to wonder if there must have been some kind of notes of Kirby's that he had been given.
Oh, yeah. I feel like these issues are like that Alan Moore quote about Jeff Johns going through his trash. I don't think he directly says Jeff Johns, but like somebody had told him that Jeff Johns was using story ideas from an offhand remark in one of his short Green Lantern comics, and that had become a whole arc in Green Lantern. Like there was a whole event, the Blackest Night.
Blackest Night, yeah.
Came from like an offhand remark a character makes as a sort of this is coming thing in a Alan Moore comic, and he gave some interview where he talked about it's like raccoons going through my trash, and I think a lot of people have overreacted to that quote because I think what he's saying is like I didn't develop that any further. Like this is what you're working with. You literally are going through my scraps. And that's what these felt like to me as well.
Although, of course, like Jack Kirby is still around. They might have actually talked about... Because I'm thinking Kirby must have had more plans because he's leaving the writing duties in the middle of the story. And Conway is, finally explaining some things that Kirby never got around to doing in his 37 issues.
I know, but even in the last issue that we've got here... it ends on a note of, what if nuclear weapons caused all this? And he's like, I guess we'll never know. And I was like, this is bleak, man, because like the whole teasing as to what caused the cataclysm has been quite steady. It's been quite interestingly done. And then it's like, what if it was nuclear weapons? I don't know. That's how it ends.
Yeah, well, and there's a hint there that the actual cause of the great disaster is going to be revealed at some point. I don't know if it ever is because I haven't read past issue 40. And, of course, these are the last issues that are, what should I say, legally available digitally.
This is it.
Yeah.
Run out.
You look on Amazon, issue 41, you can find some... used copies of the print version. That's about it. So, issue 38, Kamandi and Arna, Captives of the Killer Claw. So, of course, Arna was very briefly introduced at the end of the last issue.
Yeah, with a stomach-churning moment of horror. And listeners, that does not improve. It gets worse.
Okay. Maybe it was worse for you than it was for me, I guess, but...
Infants are practicing a breeding program with Kamandi, and we learn at the start of this issue it's going to involve forcible rape. Now, I'm sorry, Tim. I find that pretty bad.
I did not read it that way, I guess.
This is the sequence of events.
Okay.
They are infants who age rapidly, but they're still children. And their idea is, hey, we want your genetic material, which is like, it's a euphemistic way of putting it, like the Spider-Man cartoon where they had Morbius talk about, I want plasma, because he couldn't say blood. we're dancing around some pretty upsetting stuff here.
I guess, although it sounded to me like the reproduction was not going to happen sexually. That's how I was reading it.
That's how she implies it to him at a certain point. At the end of the last issue, that was not the case. We did not know that. That had not been introduced. It was very much a case of, hey, we need your traits. Here's a young lady for you. And like conscious that this person is under 5 years old. So this is where I was upset in the last issue. This issue, there is this sort of rigmarole about whether or not the process actually, although I was amused by here's this opening in a box. Is she going to say put your dick in here?
No, that does not happen. This is a Comics Code approved book. So
this is like Dune. This is where you put your hand in the box and wait to see what happens. But I felt that was all sort of a way of getting away from, well, they've set up a breeding pair between Kamandi and this young woman. Very, very young woman. So I kind of just was really bothered by it. I really, really got upset by it. And then the events of the story move us past that. I think maybe, thankfully. But because of that, the story itself it feels shortchanged as well. Like there is this sense of, well, now on to the next thing. And it's just... there's even less time for the idea to percolate than as typical in a Jack Kirby Kamandi comic, where there is a sense of let's throw things at the wall and see what sticks. That is a recurring thing, but I still feel as if at the very least there'll be a character who will reflect on what this means. Anyway, sorry, I'm just explaining my emotional state as I'm reading this.
Yeah, well. Sure, she's under 5, but these people, develop physically and emotionally a lot faster than regular humans.
She's old for her age. Yes, I heard that before, Tim.
I mean, this is a Kirby comic book. Anyway, so yeah, we start the story as a couple of burly guys who are apparently also under 5 years old.
One that looks like a trucker.
Yeah, are dragging Kamandi away, and he's saying, "No, this is crazy, insane. Let go of me, let go." And I thought it was interesting in the second panel that one of the guys says Kamandi is like some sort of wild animal, because that's exactly what Kamandi is always saying that he's not. He's trying to differentiate himself from the humans who are like wild animals. But yeah, when he gets like this, where he's so incensed about stuff, he ends up acting like a wild animal too.
Yeah. But he again. I don't mean to go on about this, but he is responding to the prospect of being asked to mate with somebody, and he's like, no, for Kamandi, everything's about freedom. That's the most important thing to him. And like the first thing Arnis says, you're right, Shenda. He's a little too unruly for my taste. I mean, oh God, like that from the jump. This is what's on the table here. So he's just like, no, I don't want any of this. I don't want to be part of this. Let me go. So he's struggling. He's resisting. He's fighting back. This is one of the.
They want to put him in the destimulator, whatever that is. Right.
Again. Yeah. This is all bad. This is like the opposite of Barbarella with Duran Duran's machine. This is the other side of that coin. But this is one of the few times where I'm completely on Kamandi's side. We've made fun of him for the way he overreacts to any perceived slight. Right? This is one of those occasions where he's entirely in the right.
It's understandable in a variety of ways. Yeah, and so they end up knocking him out, drink. Although that's kind of a weird panel, that fourth panel on the second page, because there's a fist positioned over his head, and the person says, "Done, Mistress Arna," but we don't actually see any impact on his head. And his head is drawn kind of kind of a rough way, and there's like just the color of his hair there with hardly any black lines involved. It's almost as if something happened to the art here, like it was redrawn.
Yeah, it looks like the coloring over, because the nose of the thug on the left, and then some of the features of the thug on the right as well.
Yeah,
the ink has been painted over almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what's happened there. The reworking, the touching up for this digital edition that I'm looking at has distorted the art. I would be interested to see what the original looked like. Maybe it was too faint. Maybe the actual original inks were too faint on this page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. So he's unconscious, and she wants them to take him to ... the stalls. So
it's not looking good.
They're going to the restroom. Okay.
No, they're not. She kind of looks like Ayn Rand, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I did wonder about that. Anyway,
but this is not a Steve Ditko comic, so
this is not a Steve. This would be Kirby and Ditko would be politically not on the same side. So I can absolutely see this being a piss take of Atlas Shrugged. I can see that. The secret society that's got its technology and is trying to secure itself underneath the outside world's notice. I can see the Randian reading of this.
So then we switch to Pyra and Canis, and Canis, being very dog-like, he's whining, she says. He's all worried about what's happened since their UFO was shot down. And her way of trying to calm him down is to tell her origin story, which we finally get after, 10 issues?
Yeah. This is the highlight of these issues for me, actually. Pyra's origin story is actually kind of interesting. And interesting idea, interesting concept.
Yeah, so she comes from this planet where everybody is composed of pure energy, which apparently means flame. But they can take on a humanoid shape whenever they want to. And their energy sources have been depleted. So in a nutshell, she's been asked to look around the universe and try to find a new source of energy for them. And so she gets her flaming self gets into a spaceship in a spacesuit and takes off on the UFO that we've seen before. So as she's flying around, she sees this explosion on Earth, which was the Great Disaster. And so when she arrives at Earth, she sees cities in flame. So she starts collecting artifacts on the Earth, which is, what we saw many issues ago when, all those various buildings and trains and statues and stuff from around the world that she was sending back to her planet through some sort of teleportation to try to figure out the power source of the world's great disaster. But she never heard anything back from her planet, Zerandus, so she's afraid that everyone there is dead.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very The Man Who Fell to Earth storyline, where the alien is here looking for natural resources or some energy source for their people back in their world, and they're just cut adrift. There's no word. It does explain why all that stuff was littered, and now we know where they were. They were on Florida. Do you remember when we got to this? Like, where the hell are they? They got dumped there. And
because he'd gone into space and he came down in this place, right?
Yes, exactly. And we were confused because every previous issue had given some sort of geographic reference. Mm-hmm. But yes, they were on America's Wang, as somebody once memorably described it. Florida. That's right. Where they were. But yeah, I like this. I like the story. I like the idea of her traveling across the galaxy and coming here and just witnessing this sort of event. She describes it as an explosion of incredible brilliance. So again, this is where we would assume nuclear.
Yeah.
But again, potentially not. Potentially something else. We don't know. And is this where Kirby was sort of keeping us slightly at arm's length from the cause for humans de-evolving and animals evolving into more humanoid personas?
I'm just afraid if any writer other than Kirby tries to explain it, it's going to be disappointing.
Exactly. No, it's like season 2 of Twin Peaks when David Lynch left. No, don't explain things. If you keep things creepy and weird, that actually works. You don't need to explain everything.
Or it's the Han Solo movie, explaining all kinds of things that we didn't really ever wonder about.
Oh, you're traveling by yourself? I'll call you Han Solo. Oh my God. Now, there is a recent movement to sort of recontextualize that film as actually not that bad. I'm going, guys, it was bad. I'm sorry. There were good people in it. There were good things about it. But the overall film was bad. That's the bar can't be that low. We need to admit that when a movie is just mediocre.
I barely even remember it. I saw it once and then it just kind of went down the memory hole.
I felt it dribbling out of my ears as I was watching it.
Okay, so chapter 3 of this issue, we're back with Kamandi and Arna, and she's explaining to him that he's in this room that he's in was pre-Great Disaster, a top-secret experimental population center, which was apparently meant to deal with some kind of overcrowding problem. And then she explains, their predicament of, dying of old age at 5 years old. And I could have sworn she told him that last issue. I didn't go back and look, but he's shocked like he's never heard that before, which kind of puzzled me. Am I right? Did he not?
Yeah.
Was she not told? Did he?
No, he knew. He was already provided. She wasn't her because she did not tell him because she was introduced in the last panel, but he was told.
Yeah.
Another character told him before dying of old age.
Right. So yeah,
happens.
he's witnessed it.
He's witnessed the death. Now he's witnessing the birth.
Yeah.
Or in this case, the rapid maturation of an infant into a fully conscious, inverted commas, adult. And they're being handled by robots, and there have been these like gestation tubes, and he's seeing this facsimile of the human birthing process, and he's saying that's horrible. I think that's what he's reacted to here. Actually witnessing it firsthand is probably what's upsetting him.
Well,
it's not the information as such.
Well, really? I disagree completely. Because she says, on average, we live till we're 5, perhaps 6 years old. He says, you've got to be kidding. That's horrible. She says, very. That's why we were so happy to find you.
I know, but the panel itself shows a infant being removed from a tube by a robot. He's seeing these robots handling these infants in front of him. He's seeing the sign saying, experimental population center. The posters of the mothers with the infants and the infants growing. He's seeing it all laid out in front of him. So I think that's the context for what he's saying.
Yeah. Well, agree to disagree.
Sure. That's fine. Take a drink.
Okay. but Kamandi's still conscious.
That's coming up.
Yeah. So, there is another one. She says, you're the first human we've captured who can reason as well as we can with your genes. Well, let me show you. And this is where she has him put his hand into the slot in the machine, which she says is a testing machine, and he'll feel a slight tingle, but he won't be injured. So he puts his hand in, and it zaps him, and he screams, and my hand, it's numb. What happened? So she says the sampler merely takes a reading of your genetic pattern, which turns out later to be not true. She's lying here, I guess. It's a little confusing to me, but what actually is the case, I'm still kind of confused about it. But she says, congratulations, Kamandi, you'll soon be a father, which also apparently is not actually the case, but I guess. I don't know. I mean, it was supposedly his sample was taken from him that will be like in a lab turned into a kid.
Yeah, this sort of Gom Jabbar machine that he stuck his hand in. Yeah, I think the story was curtailed. I think Kirby was going to do a sequence of stories set in this facet of the world, and he was taken up writerly duties, or he left as writer, wanted to stay on as an artist, and Gerry Conway didn't feel like continuing with the essential thrust of what he was trying to do. Wrap it up and move on to the next thing. Yeah,
of course, we're getting to the point where he left DC. So
exactly. So I think he probably was advancing an idea, and then it just it veers off the side of the road.
Yeah, this probably didn't go the way he had intended. Maybe there was even something with the comics code that like, nope, we can't do that. So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, I genuinely, I'm, as the kids say, squicked out by this. So I can only imagine what like Marv Wolfman and the like, or who were bouncing around the office back in those days, didn't really take to it. Was it David Michelini? Actually, sorry, I think that's who it was. Somebody in the DC office was like, "Whoa, what is this?"
So she suggests they need to do more tests, and he says no, and he runs away. And Arna and some of the guys go after him. But then they find, so if she loses him, then she'll be killed by that.
She's taken she's vouched for him. She's taken
by that intelligent baby. And so now the guys find out that she was going to push off the blame on them. She just admits it right straight out to them, which is kind of amazing. And of course they're not happy about that. So then she runs away too, and they're shooting at her, and it's an A-team situation where bullets never hit anybody, I guess. And so now she's looking for Kamandi. She wants to join him. And she's regretting that she shocked Kamandi without explaining the purpose of the testing device. So, which I guess, I think later it comes up that it was actually like taking energy from him, not just biological samples, but actual life energy.
Plasma. Sorry, I'm still stuck on Morbius in this Spider-Man.
Okay.
Yeah. It's we're watching a comic book wriggle its way away from the context of the comic book itself in real time. Almost, it's like, oh no,
no. What I really meant to say was,
actually, none of that was real. I mean, she was leering at him in some of those previous pages when he was going through the test. She had this creepy little smile on her face, and in this sequence where she has now been turned on by the thugs, all of a sudden she's depicted as looking a little more sympathetic. Like there's a sense of, oh, she cares for Kamandi, and look, she just wants to get away, and she just wants to him to understand. So like all of a sudden her facial expressions become softer, and like all the visual language up to that point was telling me this person is, if not a villain, then certainly has malign intent. Yeah, you do not want to be in her company. That's,
right. Just within the space of a couple pages, her character seems to change quite a bit.
Exactly.
And so she's got all of these, child appearing people, guys shooting at her and saying she's got to die. And Conway goes into how kind of shocking it looks that these, visually kids are full of hate for someone. And then in that last panel on page 14, he says, they were a life which was stolen from them by their great-grandparents, men who sought to make their dreams a reality without a thought for their children or the future. Look long and hard, dear reader. It's a sight you shouldn't soon forget. Now, Kirby never did any of this, kind of explicit moralizing. So that kind of surprised me. that Conway went that direction.
Yeah, I mean the vision of the children screaming with hate is, quite compelling. Actually, that's something I find very moving. But yeah, Kirby is a little more. I wouldn't say subtle's not the word, I guess, but he will let you figure it out.
Yeah. And Conway doesn't do that I think this might be the only point in the 3 issues that he actually goes quite that far, but still, it did kind of surprise me. Now, Kamandi has found this kind of, I guess it's an underground cave filled with water, and there are a bunch of like old boats, and as luck would have it, the motorboat he gets into runs fine. And just as Arna is arriving at his boat and jumping into it, he accidentally knocks it into full speed ahead, and they go tearing out of this cave. I mean, he probably would have wanted to do that anyway with all these people with guns coming at him, but supposedly it was an accident. And they get away from the guys with guns, and the one guy says that if that blonde punk ever comes back, I'll kill him personally. Yeah, and then this is where she tells him that it actually took a sample of his life energy, and it was a small sample, but as time went on, they would have taken greater samples, and he's not pleased to hear that at all, and he wants to just drop her off somewhere. But then she starts kind of taking over the steering, that he's sitting in the driver's seat, and their boat is kind of meandering around the ocean at high speed, until finally because he's afraid of crashing, he punches her and knocks her out.
This has been rewritten. Like the words and the pictures don't match. There's a disconnect happening here, I think. But yeah, again, like, funny, lying quiet like that, she's actually rather attractive. I mean,
and I thought that was the most predictable, hackneyed response that I could have thought of.
Exactly. But, he's looking at her. Now, who knows what the original dialogue might have been, if there was something else in place or intended. Perhaps, something to the effect of, she has the face of a young woman, but she's actually got the heart of a fanatic, something like that. Some sort of moralizing, but it would have been done in a way that was a little more succinct, beyond like Kamandi going, I kind of have the hots at this person who almost wrecked my boat moments ago.
And might have caused my early demise, even, if she kept taking life energy from him.
They wanted to suck his life force away. That's like the Princess Bride. They basically wanted to suck away years of his life. That would somehow be divvied up among the children. I mean, I don't understand how that would work.
Make babies out of it. I don't know.
Like, make babies out of his or DNA, or however we want to mystically put it.
Maybe charge up the people so they can live longer.
That's what she seems to be suggesting. But then, how does that work? Because
I don't know.
Is life force divisible? Is it that he has a certain quality of life force that they can battery store and then replicate? I don't know. No answers here, folks.
No. Yeah, but forget all about that, because that has nothing to do with the next 2 issues.
Yeah, we got giant crab. Sorry, giant lobster.
Giant lobster, yeah. They're attacked by a giant lobster here, and it crushes their boat. And
they're attacked by a B-52 song. Yes.
Rock lobster.
Lobster.
They're lost in the ocean, and we can't see them. And to be continued, next issue, The Aquarium. Don't miss it.
I kind of wish this was the last issue. I kind of wish that was it. And they died. Kamandi ended, unbelievably, with a rock lobster murdering this Ayn Rand-looking woman. Oh well, who knows what Jack Kirby had in mind for the rest of the series.
Coming up, we cover Kamandi issues 39 and 40. But first, a reminder that there are just a few days left to vote on the potential Patreon-only podcast topics. The topics once again are 1. Captain Marvel by Jim Starlin, 2. 1970s occult Marvel, including Doctor Strange, Early Spider-Woman, Werewolf by Night, Ghost Rider, Son of Satan, and more. 3. Cap in the Nixon Era, Captain America and the Falcon, issues 153 to 186, by Steve Englehart. 4. Silver Age Batman, the era that's debatably goofier than Batman 66. You must be a Deconstructing Comics Patreon supporter for at least $4 a month in order to vote, and to hear the podcast on the winning topic. $4 and up patrons also get access to our discussion of the first 50 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man, including annuals, and Spidey's origin story in Amazing Fantasy 15. Join us today at patreon.com/deconcomics.
Do you like comics?
The 1960s?
How about middle-aged gay couples gossiping about their neighbors? Then you'll love Checkered Past.
A loving examination of DC's Go-Go Check branded comic magazines published from February 1966 to August 1967.
I'm Dr. Bob.
And I'm Dr. Husband.
And each week we'll be your hosts on a trippy tour through mid-century four-color madness. Checkered Past. Available wherever fine podcasts are downloaded for free.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, so all three of these issues are, again, the covers are by Joe Kubert, and I checked the pronunciation of his name. It is Kubert. So he is an 80s video game. And this is issue 39 is a special underwater action issue.
Well,
Another one?
I'm not getting any additional experience from that. Do I read it underwater? Was the paper made with a certain quality that I could take it into the bathtub?
And the cover shows Kamandi, Arna, and some other humans in like a glass bubble. And there's a couple of giant snails and a clam and a lobster looking at them, and one is saying, "How sad, I do believe this little animal will have to be destroyed." And he says, "Let me out, you fish-faced freaks." None of them are actually fish. "I'm not a pet, I'm a man." The caption, "The strangest city of all, the aquarium, the air aquarium."
Air aquarium. They're all like mollusk species, aren't they? They all have like exoskeletons and
Yeah, the lobster is a crustacean.
True.
I don't know about the snail.
And then you've got a oyster, a clamshell. You got a clam later on. Oh dear. Yep.
Okay, so yeah, we pick up Kamandi's arm and Arna's leg are caught in this lobster's giant claw. Of course, they're underwater and they can't actually say anything, but this lobster can communicate with them telepathically, and it's telling them to just calm down, dear animal. Getting upset is the last thing you should do. Oh my, yes. He says he's not going to let them go. They just have to be patient. They're almost there. So Arna is concerned for Kamandi. She doesn't want him to fall unconscious and die. And they see the lobster's city. What is it referred to as a coral city?
That makes
there
sense.
it is, a coral city. So they're approaching that, and Arna's thought balloon, "Kamandi, if only I could speak to you. I want you to know how I really feel." Now that's also stolen from a romance comic.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like a Kirby thing at all.
No, although he wrote romance comics, but
but it doesn't feel like Kamandi.
It doesn't feel true to Kamandi.
Yeah. So right, they're put into the aquarium where they can breathe, and there are other humans there. And Kamandi's first thought is that they are prisoners, and she says it's worse than that. We're pets. So, I mean, this is kind of a Kirby-ish thing, kind of reversing the positions of the animals and the humans. We had others where, like, the circus troupe, the humans that did tricks, and, other kinds of situations like that. So it's consistent with that.
Yeah, that's true. The human who looked like a dog, if you remember that one. He had the leather strap and everything. And Kamandi had a pop at him. Yeah, all it's been a recurring idea. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they realize, these other humans are just kind of normal for this world humans. Yeah, Arna mentions again, now you know why my tribe was so eager to keep you, Kamandi. You're different. And I mean, as if this is the first time he's ever noticed that the humans in this world are not very intelligent. Now you know. I mean, well, he's known since issue 1.
Yeah, hooray for me.
Yeah,
I think he's saying that sarcastically. Hooray for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's fully aware. Look at this man's receding hairline. You're different.
And the lobster wants to come in and do examinations of the humans, and of course, Kamandi refuses. I'm not your pet. You can take your examination and shove it. And then he's thrown by one of the snails. It's not clear if he's knocked out or not.
He's flipped by the snail's head first onto the snail's shell, which knocks him out. I'm taking a drink.
he does look knocked out. Yeah, it doesn't actually say anything about his consciousness. So then we're back with Pyra and Canis, and they encounter some, humanoid lizards riding in wagons drawn by burros. So that they basically hitch a ride with those guys. And one says that come with us to Sun City and meet with Prince. Should I pronounce that Gila? It's Gila, but I think the pronunciation is Gila, isn't it? I didn't. I should have checked that pronunciation.
Yeah, but isn't it? Don't people popular just call them like Gila? As like
I suppose so.
A Gila monster or a Gila, yeah. There's, I think, in the comics context, I think we're safe enough to go with the vulgar. Just go Gila.
Or the Spanish pronunciation.
It probably is the Spanish pronunciation because of, I think this is coded as Mexico.
Yes. I think they are actually in Mexico, are they not?
Yeah. Yeah.
The animals they encounter have somehow taken on Hispanic qualities. Doesn't make any sense, but
yeah.
It makes Kamandi world sense. So, and that last panel on page 7 takes on significance if you've read the next issue, because we've got in the foreground, we've got the burro's head there facing Canis and Pyra riding in the back of the wagon. And, there's something we don't know about the burros yet. So then we're back with Kamandi. So they've been thrown food that's floating in this pond in the air aquarium. And, okay, well, yeah, you're right. He was knocked out because he's waking up.
Comes to.
Yeah. Yep. So, okay. Yeah. So I guess, yeah, there are more knockouts. There are more drinks in these 3 issues than I realized. Conway's got that right. Get Kamandi knocked out a lot. Kamandi tries to retrieve some of this food and realizes that it's garbage. And Arna's like, I could have warned you about that, but you wouldn't listen to me because I tried it while you were knocked out. So he kind of calms down a little, and then he finds that one of these other humans can talk, and he assumes that he must have been one of Sacker's trained animals. Did you notice Conway is putting in a lot of Marvel-style asterisks, referring back to other issues? Which
interesting.
I don't think Kirby was doing that very much, but just in these 3 issues, it happens at least half a dozen times.
Interesting.
And here it refers back to issue 11, when Sacker's trained humans were seen.
Yeah.
And this guy is called, what, Smasher?
Smasher. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's not revealed in this scene.
No, he says it. He says, I am Smasher.
Oh, yeah, he does, yeah. I am Smasher, the leader. I will not let men die. And the snail and the clam are watching and wondering. So he says, the new specimen is a problem. It'd be most amusing to test him against the leader. Shall we organize a contest? I mean, this idea goes nowhere, so I'm not sure why he even bothered, but yeah, we do not come back to that idea.
This does remind me of the Sacker storyline, where he had that contest with the previous Alpha. And the Kamandi, like, it's putting a hat on a hat, if you like, because it's sort of calling attention to that callback. But in this version of that story, the alpha male character actually is somewhat more benevolent. So I wonder if that's the idea, just to remind the reader of that storyline, and even the fact that they're going to once again have a sort of gladiatorial contest, and then it just goes a different direction.
Right. So then, speaking of callbacks, you go to the next page, and we're back with the naval battle between the apes and the tigers.
It's still going.
I mean, I thought that was a completely lost thread, and now we're back, and the tigers have prevailed, and the apes are retreating. Ben Boxer is in trouble for his quote-unquote sabotage, which was thwarting the potential murder of the ape commander. Tufton says, suppose I was only bluffing, what then? So, and Ben doesn't say anything. So, yeah, I mean, I can see maybe Tufton was bluffing. I guess we'll never know, but sort of suggests that he was there, that he wasn't actually going to kill the commander.
I mean, weirdly, I think it's meant to make him more sympathetic, that he's saying, well, maybe I wouldn't have done it, maybe I was a bluff. But I actually think the fact that he was going to go through with it, because he had become so overwhelmed by his father and his idea of how he should be to please his father. I think he would have done it. And then I think he would have hated himself for doing it. And that's what makes him sympathetic as a character. I mean, I always think about the scene of him and Kamandi rolling around on the beach laughing. You know, they're both kids.
Yeah.
But they're both trying to be men. They're trying to be heroes. They're trying to be bigger than they are. So I fully believe he would have gone through it, and Boxer actually saved him from himself, if you like. So this is an unnecessary wrinkle, I feel. Like, I think there's a hanging thread introduced here that's not necessary. If there was like a quiet moment between the two where he says, look, I'm going to have to punish you. I'm going to have to be seen to punish you because you've betrayed my men. But thank you for saving me from myself. Even that would have been, I don't know, might have been something interesting to throw in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're back with Kamandi, and of course he's just, upset about not being free here, that he's in this air aquarium. And he punches the glass and just hurts his hand. And the creatures outside are laughing at him, so that just makes him angrier.
I do love their facial expressions.
Yeah, like Kirby's job. When he punches the glass, then that snail looks really surprised, and then in the next panel, he's laughing. Kamandi's determined to break out of there, and with the help of Arna and Smasher, he dislodges this boulder that rolls down a hill and breaks the glass, which means, of course, water starts pouring in. But Kamandi and Arna and everybody else is swimming, trying to get to the surface. And Smasher takes it upon himself to fight off the giant lobster. And Kamandi thinks, well, I got to get Arna out of here before she drowns. Hopefully Smasher can take care of himself, but Smasher never surfaces.
Yeah, and this, again, just felt like a rush to get to this ending that's coming up imminently. It's like, oh, well, I guess Smasher drowned. But I felt as if the whole plan was ridiculously stupid. And then, Kamandi smashed this hole through the glass, this giant jagged hole, and this rush of water comes through, and they swim against that.
Right, yeah. It's not sweeping them out, it's sweeping them back in. But somehow they get out anyway. Yeah.
Like, if it was to suddenly fill and then they would get sucked out, I don't know how that would work. But potentially you could justify that. But yeah, the fact that they're actually swimming against the rush of water through this gaping hole that Kamandi's created with Smasher. That's nonsense.
Yeah, there is a mention in the dialogue, Arna saying, "I'll try, Kamandi, but the current, it's so strong." But yeah. So then Kamandi is, when they're on the surface, back on land, he's complaining that the other humans don't even seem to care that Smasher gave his life for them.
Yeah, there's a sort of fake poignancy injected at the end there. Oh, I guess he gave his life for these people who don't even care. And it's like, well, we just met him. Like, you kill Smash off sooner than you do a Kamandi love interest.
Well, I mean, I feel the same way about, this perhaps after the fact inserted idea of Arna's in love with Kamandi. It's like, you just met him. So I don't understand why she would want to share her feelings with him already. But whatever. Whatever. We're almost done.
We're coming to the end. This is two men who are just exhausted now. That's what you're listening to, listener. We're just looking. Okay, let's go.
and if we did these all at once, we'd also be drunk from drinking every time Kamandi was knocked out.
Yes. Oh my God.
Next, learn the sinister secret of the lizards of Los Lorraine. Now, here, in this last panel, there is no I in Lorraine, but in the actual story there is. I'm not sure what's up with that, but... So, issue 40. And we've got a lizard, a humanoid lizard holding up Kamandi, unconscious. I guess not in story, so maybe we don't need to drink, but...
Don't have to drink for that one. No. But like his arm looks like it's been snapped in two.
Yeah, that's a really disconcerting position for his arm. Kamandi captured by the lizard lords of Los Lorraine, with an I in it. And so on the splash page, he is on the beach with Arna, and there's a giant parrot approaching them. And he mentions that this, apparently it was the same thing that happened with all the insects in Canada, that something made these parrots giant size. And he throws a rock at it and, beans it with the rock, and it takes off. Lots of narration on this page.
I find it interesting that Arna is described as a mutant here.
Yeah, that was kind of puzzling to me. So a mutant power is you die at 5 years old?
Well, I mean, to be fair, yeah, Kirby and Stan Lee kind of messed up our understanding of what mutant means with the X-Men. Like, now a bunch of kids think that, you get hit by dose radiation, you have superpowers. Mutant is, an alteration in the genetic sequence that follows generation. So, there is a difference, there is a mutation. So I can see her being mutant in respect of Kamandi, in that, her lifespan has significantly been reduced.
Yeah.
That's a mutation, if you like.
Sure.
That's an adaptation to the world of Kamandi. They die sooner. And that was kind of the point, that there was this idea that there was a... overpopulation was such an issue that humanity needed to live much less, and this was their solution. And Arna's people are sort of left with that inheritance.
Yeah, I guess that's a suggestion. It's not quite stated, but yeah, that part about their great grandparents stole their longer life. Yeah, apparently that was the solution. Yeah, just live 5 years and have advanced, speeded up human development.
Yeah, you've just got a group of hyper aging young people with access to technology, rationality, and deep wells of resentment. Great. Perfect solution. You've created a society of pissed off sociopaths.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a goal that anybody would set for their descendants. You're only going to live to 5 years old. but you'll live your life really quickly in super speed motion. Anyway.
There's usually in a storyline like this, and it's not a unique idea, Logan's Run and so forth, blah, blah, blah. But in a storyline like this, there's usually, for the sake of the society's cohesion, the promise of some sort of reward. Some sort of, but if you're extra good, you get to live out in this retirement village. It's over there. Don't go looking for it. You won't find it. You know, that's that idea of if you... We have this burden where we're going to die sooner than we would like, but our old masters are still alive and they're looking for a solution. And if you do all the right things, they'll let you join them in their quest to find out the secret for returning us to our proper lifespan. Like that's the carrot that you need. But they had nothing. They were
It's all stick.
They were just awful people.
Yeah. So, and she's still trying to explain to Kamandi why her people needed him.
And why he should come back to her tribe. Yeah, she keeps saying that.
But he's not going with it at all. He's just walking off in the other direction. He's going to lead his life as a free man. So then we're back with Canis and Pyra.
Sorry to interrupt again, but like we just need to over your observation before about having these editorial notes. So you've got the editorial note as shown in Kamandi 35, Gerry, but you also have Arna saying, because we're mutants, we don't live as long as you do. We mature more quickly and die by the time we're 5 years old. We know, Arna. We know. This is the fourth time you've explained this. Third, technically. Somebody else explained it the first time. But, like, we know all this. So, the same information, like, it's like the editor, Arna, everyone's trying to make sure we're on track here.
And by the way, they only live till they're 5. Did you know?
What?
Yeah. So, Canis and Pyra have been riding in this wagon, and they've come into the town, and so the lizards are. And of course, this is Mexico, and they've taken on taking siestas. Although the reasoning, I guess, is a little bit different. They have to soak up energy from the sun. We're
sort of bordering on some quasi-racist crap here. It's not good.
Yeah, I did kind of feel that too. And in this scene, it's revealed that the burros are also intelligent, but they're being used as pack animals. And, Pyra particularly is not happy about it. The lizards are trying to make excuses for it. They're saying these guys are criminals awaiting punishment. Yeah, that's it. But it's weird because I feel like both the lizards and the burros are being given different sets of stereotypical qualities of Mexicans. I mean, the lizards are taking siestas, and the burros speak with a Spanish accent.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was some kind of social commentary intended with the burros being made to work and the treatment of them, but I didn't feel like it was being executed quite well. I mean, if it were that I would have expected that the lizards then would be portrayed as being, I don't know, like more like American or something, and like, expecting the Mexicans to work for them, but they're both Mexicans. So
I mean, could it be that they're the sort of white Spaniard settlers, and then you've got the indigenous people from the region, and that's the divide? Maybe that's what they're going for. But it's, I don't know.
Do Spaniards take siestas? I'm not sure.
I thought they did, but I could be wrong.
Maybe they do.
It's a temperate climate thing.
It comes from Europe. So
I'm quite fond of an afternoon nap these days, Tim.
Yeah.
It could just be old age.
Yeah, same here.
But yes, it's not handled well, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, Kamandi as a whole, the book, has really walked up to the line with a lot of its depictions of race, particularly because nation states tend to get represented by a specific animal type, or in the case of Kamandi's trip across America, specific states within America are represented by different animals. So, there has been a squiffiness like lurking in the background. This is the occasion where I feel it stepped over that line and got into you're now in the murky waters of racist caricature, and that's not a good place to be. And it's not fun to read. And I do feel like it's less astute than some of the stuff that's come before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So important point here, too, is so they need the sun's heat for their health, and that's what they're soaking up when they're taking naps. But in the winter, they have to get their light from the sun peak, so this mountain that's glowing, which will become important a little later. Anyway, then the burrow thing comes up, and Pyra stops one of the lizards from hitting a burrow with a stick, and she breaks the stick and demands to speak to their leader. So she and Canis are taken to Prince Gila the Great, who tries to catch them in a net. So
it doesn't go well.
Yeah, not a good faith negotiation at all. And of course, then Pyra gets angry, burns through the net, and I don't. Now, this kind of confused me that she melts the wall. So, what is the wall made of? It seems to be rock. I mean, I suppose she could be hot enough to melt rock. Or is it adobe? I don't know. But
I thought it was adobe. Yeah.
Melts a hole in the wall, completely forgetting about Dr. Canis.
It's pretty funny. Pyra, what about me?
Yeah. Considering her origin on a distant world at the far end of the galaxy, she may well be forgiven her one careless oversight. Yeah, and then there's Canis surrounded by lizards.
Yeah, again, not where I thought this was going, because once we introduced the concept of the lizard people needing the sun's rays to sort of recharge, I thought she was going to be captured somehow, and then they were going to start sort of trying to drain her the way that Arnis people were trying to drain Kamandi, like a similar sort of, again, like the city of energy, life force.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a logical thing for the lizards to do, but it seems they just said they wanted to put her in prison for some reason or another. But yeah, that would have been a little better explanation, I think. Because, yeah, I mean, she could solve their problem. Not willingly, but she could solve their problem.
Yeah, or at least that's where the story you'd think would go with that, not necessarily that. I just feel like this is there's several ideas being left on the table, and it's a bit lackluster for me.
Yeah. So Kamandi and Arna are barbecuing something on a spit. We have no idea what it is. It doesn't say, does it? It's just there's this big sort of comma-shaped chunk of meat, and they're approached by a burrow.
Hopefully it wasn't a burrow.
Yeah, hopefully they're not eating burrow, yes. This burrow's delicious. Oh, hi, burrow, that can talk. And he tells them that Canis and Pyra are captives of Prince Gila, and he was sent there to find Kamandi and Arna and bring them back. And Kamandi's like, well, how did Canis know where we were to look for us? And he says, no, it wasn't Canis who sent me, it was my lord. And knocks them out. Drink.
Hey, okay, here we go. We're not doing this one on camera, folks, because so Tim just has to take my word for it. But I set myself this challenge. I'm honor bound to follow.
Right. Well, I think that's the last one.
I think that's it. I think we're done.
Yeah.
We're out. We're got here.
There are a few pages, but no more drinking. So they wake up in the prince's, I guess it's the prince's throne room. We can see the melted wall.
Hole's still there.
Yeah, Canis and Prince Gila are still there. And Kamandi's glad to see that Canis is alive. Keela points through the melted hole at the conveniently located melted hole in the wall, pointing at the mountain that's glowing. And he says, you will be my slave, and you will go to the mountain and steal its secret. Kamandi, of course, protests, and some of the burros come after him, which is just a distraction so that Prince Gila can pull a gun on Arna. And so then Kamandi doesn't have much choice. It was, I thought, a good detail. It's pointed out this gun is a relic from the past, but I assure you it still functions today. So, I mean, these lizards are not producing handguns, but they've found an old one and it works because apparently nothing ever wears out. That boat also worked perfectly.
Yes.
Who knows how many decades it had been there. So, Chapter 4, he's climbing up the mountain. He has to deal with a giant vine that attacks him. And he remembers his grandfather. I once saw a man ripped apart by killer vines back when I lived with my grandfather in New York. These things are dangerous, deadly. Grandfather said they were mutants. Caused by the Great Disaster. Okay, I don't know if that has anything to do with the rest of the story, if these vines are going to appear next issue. But, yeah, we get a struggle with a vine. And then he finds some ruins, and within the ruins is what he refers to as a sun machine. And he knows what it is, but he's not telling us quite yet. He refers to it as a stolen star. Not just a giant light bulb, it's a stolen star. So, and he rigs up this kind of sled so he can slide down the mountain carrying this sun machine. And when he arrives, the lizards are so happy about it that they completely forget about him, and he's able to get Canis and Arna and get out of there. And then we find out that this thing was actually a nuclear breeder reactor. And when it was on the mountain, the lower temperature kept it stable. But now that it's in the very warm valley, it overheats and blows up. Radiation, I suppose, but that's not mentioned.
So he just killed a bunch of people.
Or lizards, yes. And burros probably, too.
And burros.
Yeah, burros didn't do anything.
No.
But
it was awful.
Yeah, and no comment about that whatsoever. Just, they kind of walk off into the woods, and that's the end of the issue. And the end of Kirby's involvement in Kamandi.
Oh. No, it's really sad to me because I feel like we have been batting 1,000 for a couple of these episodes. There's been a couple of highlights recently. I thought we were going to have a long slog to the end of subpar stuff. He started pulling them out again. And then just with the society of hyper-evolved child adults, I started to feel like something had gone wrong. And then he's no longer in the book as much. And then at the conclusion, he's off altogether. And I really feel like it just goes off a cliff. Whatever that weirdo energy of Kirby's imagination that was moving this forward. Once you remove that, it's just disparate elements. Conway can't match it.
No.
And it's a shame because looking back, I've really enjoyed talking about this series with you, Tim, because I just feel like some of it was just marvelous, like really interesting ideas that on paper should not work. Like you would not commission Kamandi. You wouldn't. Based on a pre-C or a summary, or you would just go, nah, it's been done. But there's a lot of fun in this comic. I really have enjoyed it. And just for it to sort of just be frittered away.
Yeah, it just kind of trails off.
Yeah.
And then there were a bunch more issues that Kirby wasn't involved in. I'm not sure quite. Let's see. what did I find here? So it goes up to issue 59. I don't know. I haven't looked into who wrote them or drew them.
So at least it's another year and a half or so.
Yeah. So, yeah, another 19 issues. If it's monthly, 19 months. But, yeah. I might read them, but they're definitely, I would guess, not nearly as good as what we were reading up until almost the end of his writing run.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of these Kirby books we've read, I've been sort of thinking, well, in some cases kind of forgetting that it was continued after Kirby left. I just kind of feel like Kirby should have just ended them all and nobody should ever have picked them up again and tried to continue them. But if there's money to be made, somebody's going to continue it in mainstream comics where the creator doesn't own the copyright.
Well, I feel as if when we did our reading on the different biographies, I feel there was the suggestion that he had always intended to hand over the properties to other
he had, but
creators. And we've talked about this already, I know. But I feel like that is a creative project. That is a creator saying, okay, I can build these concepts and then I want other artists and writers to come in and make something of them. But that is not something I think a company can understand. Because then you're dealing with a little mini kingdom within your portfolio of work. And that has to be squashed. You can't have that. And I find it interesting that, second mention of in this episode, but I find it interesting that Alan Moore had carved that out with America's Best Comics, where he would sort of start all these different properties, like Promethea, Tom Strong, all the rest of it. And then he was beginning to introduce other writers and other teams to sort of keep these books going. And then DC acquired Wildstorm, which included ABC, and all of a sudden all that stopped. Well, part of the reason all that stopped is because Alan Moore walked away because he didn't want anything to do with DC.
Right.
But I feel that another facet of it was that no, that's not what we do. Grant Morrison tries to repeat it again years later with Seven Soldiers, and again there's like no, you don't just create a little mini fiefdom and then ask us to let you populate it with your friends or people you like. The person I feel who's actually had the most success with this model is Jonathan Hickman with the X-Men books, insofar as he's done it, right? But I, again, don't think a lot of those books have been especially successful without Hickman's direct involvement. There's a couple of exceptions. I would strongly recommend people read the Zeb Wells Hellions book, which didn't last very long, which again is very telling. But I thought it was a great book, great X-Men deep dive. But yeah, he brought in a stable of writers and artists and had them do X-Men books under his aegis, under his umbrella. And then he moved on, and the life has slowly drained out of that too. I don't understand why it's not a workable... I understand in terms of corporate logic why it isn't, but I don't understand on its face why a company can't just restrain themselves and let this sort of creative model actually have some success. Because it makes sense to me that, a creator doesn't want to be tied down permanently to a book or even a couple of books. They want to move on to the next thing. That makes sense. And, if you want to work with this IP that I've set up for you, well, great. How about we sort of recruit a few other creators to come in and keep the ball rolling, and then I'll go off and do something else. That seems to be anathema for some reason. I don't get it, but that's what happened here too. Kirby just couldn't work out that detail, and I wonder if he thought he'd be able to do it at Marvel, and again, that didn't work.
Right. Well, I mean, we know that with DC, he wanted to just start properties and have other people work on them. And they're like, but you're Jack Kirby. We want Jack Kirby to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So he stayed on Kamandi as long as he did, after all the Fourth World stuff was canceled. But yeah, I mean, I can understand his idea from a business angle, but from a creative angle, I would have much rather that he just, finished every story the way he wanted to finish it and nobody else ever touched it. But anyway, so I guess we need to do OMAC next. That's
God, give me strength.
It's the last bit of Kirby DC stuff. And then, I'd like to look at the stuff he did after he went back to Marvel.
Very good. Well, we will start circling dates on the calendar for that, folks.
Kamandi, The Last Boy on Earth is published by DC. If you're enjoying our weekly comics talk, consider supporting this podcast by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics. And go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. You can comment on any episode there or drop us a line at mail@deconstructingcomics.com. That's also the address for submitting your own comics work for possible inclusion on our spin-off podcast, Critiquing Comics. Our theme is by J.B. Anderton. Back in April, Kumar and I talked about the first 4 volumes of Kentaro Miura's Berserk. In the mold of my talks with Emmet about Jack Kirby's DC work, Kumar and I decided to keep going through Miura's series bit by bit here on the show. So next week we'll discuss volumes 5 and 6 of Berserk, as Guts' interminable flashback sequence moves slowly toward Griffith's ascension to the God Hand and the breakdown of his friendship with Guts. That's next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.